A retired electrician in Las Vegas fills a glass from a garden hose connected to pipe buried in his backyard. It was a 112-degree Fahrenheit afternoon. The water hits 56 degrees Fahrenheit. His neighbors will hand the power company $9,000 before September. He will hand them nothing, $38 in materials, one afternoon of digging, and one number that tells you the exact depth where the earth does the work for free. Nobody in the industry wants you to measure it. Last spring, I flew to the Dordogne Valley in southern France to see something I had only read about on off-grid building forums. For months, I had been following posts from French self-builders who call themselves auto-constructeurs. They were running water through buried polyethylene pipe and pulling it back into their homes at temperatures that should not be possible in July. Blurry photos, sketched diagrams, claims I could not verify from a screen. So I went. What I found in the Périgord Noir region was not experimental. It was ordinary. Stone farmhouses 200 years old sat on limestone hills where the ground temperature holds steady year-round. At the first property I visited, the outdoor air was 38 degrees Celsius. That is 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The homeowner had buried 40 meters of 25mm polyethylene pipe at a depth of 2 meters. I pulled out the probe thermometer I brought from home and measured the water coming back into his kitchen. 14 degrees Celsius, 57 degrees Fahrenheit, in the dead of summer. That water ran through a small fan coil unit the man purchased for less than 80 euros. A tiny 40-watt circulation pump pushed the water through the loop. Nothing else. The indoor temperature held at 22 degrees Celsius, 72 degrees Fahrenheit. No compressor, no refrigerant, no air conditioner of any kind, just pipe, water, and the earth beneath the house. The system had been running for 11 years. The only maintenance was an annual filter change. The pipe cost less than 50 euros. The earth did the rest. These homesteaders did not learn this from contractors or architects. They learned it from agricultural forums and neighbors talking over fences. In France, this system has a name. They call it the Puits Canadien, or the Puits Provençal. It is taught in government-backed building science courses and referenced in official energy guides published by the French state. In the United States, the average licensed plumber has never heard of it. The physics behind what I measured in that French farmhouse is not new. It is not experimental. It predates electricity itself. And the civilizations that first mastered it did so on a scale that makes our modern cooling industry look primitive. In the desert city of Yazd, Iran, summer highs regularly exceed 104 degrees Fahrenheit. 2,500 years ago, Persian engineers solved this without a single watt of electricity. They dug underground water channels called qanats that carried cool groundwater beneath the city. Above ground, they built tall brick towers called badgirs. These towers caught the desert wind and drove hot air downward through shafts into subterranean rooms connected to the water channels below. As the air passed over the cold groundwater, it dropped by as much as 27 degrees Fahrenheit. Residents gathered in basement chambers cooled by a breeze that no machine produced. Yazd still has roughly 700 surviving wind catchers today, the oldest date to the 14th century. UNESCO now recognizes the Qanat systems as World Heritage Sites. The Romans went further. In villas across the Italian peninsula, they circulated water through channels built directly into the walls of their homes. This is the earliest documented case of water loop cooling integrated into residential architecture, not a theory, a construction technique. Standard Roman engineering 2,000 years ago? Then the knowledge vanished. For over 1,000 years, nobody built on what the Persians and Romans had already proven. The modern rediscovery began in Europe. In 2004, Dr. Wolfgang Feist, founder of the Passive House Institute in Darmstadt, Germany, demonstrated earth tube cooling to visiting engineers during a tour of Passive House row homes. By the mid-1990s, installations in Austria, Denmark, and Germany had already become common for residential ventilation, heating, and cooling. The technology was proven. The engineering community knew it worked. Major institutions started building at scale. The World Meteorological Organization headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland, installed a Canadian well system in the early 2000s. Two parallel pipe networks were buried 15 meters underground. The soil at that depth holds a constant 15 degrees Celsius year-round. The Earth Ranger Center near Toronto, certified LEED Gold in 2006 and later upgraded to Platinum, uses 9 earth tubes buried 3 meters deep. Those tubes warm winter air by 20 degrees Celsius and cool summer air by 10 degrees Celsius. When measuring the coefficient of performance, or COP, purely based on the electricity used by a tiny water pump versus the thermal energy shifted, the ratio can look incredibly high, sometimes over 20. But comparing this directly to a mechanical heat pump is an apples to oranges comparison. Water moves heat roughly 4 times more efficiently than air through the same diameter pipe, and a properly installed loop lasts 50 to 100 years. A mechanical air conditioner lasts 15 years. The science has been proven across civilizations and centuries. So why does no licensed plumber in America offer to install this? The answer is not incompetence, it is money. In 1902, a 25-year-old engineer named Willis Carrier stood in a printing plant in Brooklyn, New York. He was solving a humidity problem for the Sackett-Wilhelms Lithographing and Publishing Company. The machine he designed became the foundation of mechanical air conditioning. In 1915, he founded the Carrier Corporation. By the 1920s, that company was running national advertising campaigns positioning machine-cooled air as the mark of American progress. Their trade publications framed passive cooling and water-based systems as primitive, backward, unsuited to modern life. The erasure was deliberate. Picture a conference room in 1927. HVAC industry representatives from equipment manufacturers sat on the committees drafting the first model mechanical codes in the United States. They wrote the rules. By 1945, the post-war housing boom had locked in AIR-cooled mechanical systems as the only acceptable method for cooling American homes. Passive alternatives vanished from architecture schools entirely. The American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers codified compressor-based cooling as the default for every thermal comfort standard in the country. By 1980, fewer than 3% of American architecture programs taught any passive cooling method at all. The technology was not disproven. It was deleted from professional memory. Think about what that means for the plumber who shows up at your house today. He was never taught earth-coupled cooling in trade school. It was never on his licensing exam. His supply house does not stock the parts because the building code does not recognize the system. The inspector cannot approve what her training never covered. An entire chain of professionals is locked out of knowledge that French self-builders learn from internet forums and conversations with neighbors. Not because they are stupid, because the curriculum was rewritten decades ago by the companies that sell the machines. The money behind this exclusion is staggering. The United States HVAC industry was valued at $156 billion in 2025, over 117,000 contracting businesses, more than 600,000 workers. Every one of them depends on you buying, maintaining, and replacing compressor-based systems every 12 to 15 years. A $50 pipe that lasts a century threatens all of it. When earth tube systems were introduced to North America in the early 2000s, they were met with outright hostility. Bad installations caused by improper slope, corrugated pipe, and inadequate depth produced real failures. That part was true. But instead of fixing the technique, the American building industry used those failures to bury the entire concept. Trade publications called earth tubes mold incubators. Europe studied the same failures, corrected the method, and installed thousands more. America threw the idea in the trash. Open the International Residential Code today. You will find no performance pathway for earth-coupled water cooling. No inspection checklist, no recognized system category, a setup that buries polyethylene pipe at 6 feet and circulates water through it does not fit the template, so it cannot be permitted, not because it fails, because the form does not have a box for it. A $50 pipe cannot fund a $156 billion industry, and every family opening their July utility bill at the kitchen table and setting it face down because the number makes them sick is funding that industry right now. Now, if you do not own land, if you are not off-grid, if you are sitting in a suburban house or an apartment right now, stay with me, because what comes next works in any home, costs under $300, and requires 0 permits in most jurisdictions. This part was built specifically for you. Here is the number I promised at the beginning of this video. The one measurement that changes everything. It is the ground temperature at depth in your specific climate zone. At 6 to 8 feet below the surface, across most of the continental United States, the soil temperature stabilizes. It stops following the weather above. In July, when the air hits 100 degrees Fahrenheit, the Earth 6 feet down sits between 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit. In January, when the air drops below freezing, that same Earth holds between 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit. It never changes. That stability is your cooling system, and it has been sitting beneath your property since before the foundation was poured. Your grandfather may have known this without knowing the science behind it. If he had a root cellar, his vegetables stayed fresh through August without refrigeration. The ground at 6 feet holds steady. That is why. The same principle that kept his produce crisp in the dark will cool the water running through a buried pipe today. Any homeowner can find their ground temperature right now. If you have a well, point a thermometer at the tap. Well, water is ground temperature. If you do not have a well, search your state geological survey for ground temperature data by zip code. That single number is your performance ceiling. It tells you exactly how cold the water will be when it returns from the loop. No plumber, no HVAC contractor, and no utility company will ever give you this number voluntarily. The solution it points to costs $50. Their service call costs $300. Here is how to build this yourself. You need 200 feet of 3/4-inch high-density polyethylene tubing rated for potable water, $30 to $50 at any farm supply or irrigation store. You need one small circulation pump rated at 2 to 3 gallons per minute, 40 to 60 watts, $25 to $40. You need a fan coil unit or an automotive heater core paired with a small fan for indoor air distribution, $30 to $80 at any auto parts store. Add brass barb fittings and hose clamps for $10 to $15. Total system cost runs $95 to $185. The pipe alone is under $50. Step 1. Dig a trench 6 feet deep at minimum, 8 feet in southern states where the soil takes longer to cool. Run 50 to 100 feet of linear trench. A coiled or slinky layout doubles effective pipe contact within a shorter distance. Rent a mini excavator for half a day at $200 to $350 or dig by hand if the ground allows it. Step 2. If you are building an air-based earth tube, a 1 to 3% slope is vital to drain toxic condensation buildup. For a closed water loop, you still want a slight slope to prevent stubborn air pockets from locking up your pump. Step 3. Backfill with damp, dense soil, not gravel, not sand, soil to pipe. Contact is everything. Damp earth pressed tight against the pipe conducts heat away far more efficiently than loose fill or aggregate. Step 4. Run both ends of the loop through the foundation wall or rim joist into the house. Connect the pump to a completely sealed pressurized hydronic loop. A 5-gallon bucket left open will rapidly introduce oxygen, causing intense biological slime growth, algae, and constant evaporation inside your home. In most of the country, that return temperature sits around 55 degrees in the dead of July. Step 5. Route that water through a properly rated hydronic fan coil. While it will not replace a standard air conditioner during a brutal heat wave, because a tiny heater core cannot handle the latent heat load of an entire house, it can provide supplemental zone cooling for very little electrical draw. 3 things you need to watch. Use only smooth wall potable water rated polyethylene. Never PVC. It cracks underground and leaches chemicals over time. Never use corrugated pipe. The ridges trap sediment and breed mold. If your water table sits less than 4 feet below the surface, this system will not work on your property. That is hydrology, not a design flaw. If you are in South Florida or coastal Louisiana, this one is not for you. Flush the loop once a year with a mild hydrogen peroxide solution to prevent biological buildup. Insulate any exposed pipe above ground to stop condensation near electrical components. And monitor your return water temperature with a simple thermometer to make sure the system is delivering what the earth in your zone can provide. What you end up with is a cooling loop that runs on less electricity than a light bulb and delivers water at 55 degrees when the air outside hits triple digits. The pipe lasts 50 to 100 years. The earth does not send a bill. The system does not break down after 15 years. When the grid fails during a heat wave, the pump runs off a car battery. I want to know one thing from you. What is your well water temperature or your ground temperature at depth? And what state are you in? Every climate zone has a different ground number, a different water table, and a different return on this system. Drop your temperature and your state in the comments. And don't forget, if you want to take your off-grid electrical game to the next level, my buddy Oliver over at Off Grid Ohms has got you covered. Go show him some love.